Madhuri Dixit's digital debut, The Fame Game, created by Sri Rao and directed by Karishma Kohli and Bijoy Nambiar, is a mystery suspense thriller meets family drama in a story that isn't exactly revolutionary. The show is about a Bollywood star, Anamika Anand, who mysteriously disappears, which leads to a media, public, and investigative frenzy. Was she murdered? Was she kidnapped? Did she leave on her own will? If so, why? And what price do Anand and those around her pay for their actions? These are the questions that the show sets out to answer and actually builds a very interesting premise. The investigation, led by Rajshri Deshpande as the cop Shobha, lends itself well to the suspense part of the show. But some of her scenes are blatantly unnecessary. This tell don't show almost feels like a audience को सब बैठ के समझाओगे तभी समझेंगे kind of thing. If the show would have trusted its audience more, it just would have been more impactful. Impact के बाद पे, let's come to the cast. Madhuri as the star Anamika Anand, who has managed to maintain her fan following and fame despite Bollywood's notorious history with the age gap, is marvelous. Where the screenplay stutters, Madhuri doesn't, and makes every scene her own, even if she's absolutely silent. She keeps her tag of Queen of Expressions intact with the show since she flits seamlessly between all the roles she's supposed to play in her family and in her surroundings, and how distant some of those are from whom she wants to be. The show also explores how Anand's stardom affects those around her. There's Sanjay Kapoor as her abusive husband, who somehow blames her for both his flaws and his violence. And then there are her kids, Lakshmir Saran as her closeted son Avinash, and Muskan Jaffrey as her daughter Amara, who wants to follow in her mother's footsteps because she feels invisible when the spotlight is on Anamika. Funnily enough, when a star like Madhuri is on screen, there is a danger of those around her being washed out. But the side characters hold their own pleasantly well, especially Lakshmir. Amara, though portrayed well, is naive to a fault, and her idiosyncrasies become almost frustrating for a viewer. Lakshmi's journey from denial to acceptance is done well, and so is the show's portrayal of the fact that the idea of family doesn't need to be limited to husband, wife, child. But there is so much happening. मैंने तो मकरंद देशपांडे का arc and the creepy stalker played by Gagan Arora and the mystery surrounding them कुछ भी बताया ही नहीं है. Which also, how does he keep waltzing into these high security places? Regardless, this is the show's major flaw. I've always believed that the difference between a good show and a masterpiece is knowing what needs to be left out. There is a scene where Avinash assaults a trans person जिसकी कोई ज़रूरत ही नहीं है plot में. In fact, it gives into this harmful stereotype of trans people being dangerous which just... There lies the show's Achilles heel. जो lens है story पे. There is a gap between that of understanding and empathy. And that's what makes the show's emotions and plot seem almost superficial despite a cast that is trying their best. If they had given the major plots a little bit more space and trusted their audience thoda zyada, this show would have been almost impossible to put down. The one thing that bothered me was Madhuri playing the perfect, kind woman stuck in that dukh dard wala cycle. Even though the generational trauma arc with Suhasini Mule as her acerbic, domineering mother is excellent, I was hoping and praying for shades of grey from Madhuri, which thankfully arrived towards the end. But the show's climax, or at least the first seasons, was interesting but also meh. If you're going to watch The Fame Game, watch it for the love triangle and the cast, especially Suhasini and Shubhangi Latkar as the contrasting mother figures in Anamika's life, and the conversations it is at least making an honest attempt to have about gender, especially sexism, sexuality, and even mental health.